Alright, in today's video we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima, that new trailer, and how it seems that this game is going to be the biggest game that Sucker Punch has ever developed. We're also going to be talking about the release window reveal that we got for Ghost of Tsushima. And we're also going to talk about the first PlayStation 5 console exclusive game that was announced, that game being GodFall. Very interesting stuff here. I'm sure a lot of you were interested in getting more info on that game, so hopefully I can provide that for you here in this video. But we're going to start out talking about Ghost of Tsushima. First of all, that new trailer that was dropped during the Video Game Awards was pretty awesome. I really liked it. I think it did a good job in showing us just how diverse some of the environments are going to be in this game. I think it gave the game a really good sense of scale, size, and scope. It looks like it's a very large game. And it also gave us a little bit more of a look into some of the combat, but not too deep. That's the thing that I'm really going to be interested in learning about Ghost of Tsushima going into 2020. We're going to be getting a lot more info in this game, obviously, going forward. And I really want to know just how deep the combat is, how much depth there is to it. I have a good feeling based off of everything we've seen so far, and just knowing, how much depth there was to a certain extent with playing Infamous Second Son, which is the last game that Sucker Punch made. I think they're going to have a lot of different things here within Ghost of Tsushima that they haven't necessarily revealed yet, and that's stuff that we're going to get later on. But that's what I'm most interested in finding out about. I can't wait to get this game in my hands and feel. I feel like with games like this, you see you're playing as a samurai, and there's going to be a lot of melee combat, close quarters combat. It's going to be really interesting to me to see how that feels, and if Sucker Punch can really nail that feeling. And so I want to read a portion of this article I came across where it talks about Ghost of Tsushima being the biggest game that Sucker Punch has ever made. It says that Sucker Punch's communications manager, Andrew Goldfarb, has taken to the PlayStation blog to provide an update on the ancient Japan action title. The main character, Jin, will start out as a traditional samurai warrior, but as shown in the trailer, he'll learn skills and adopt tactics that are decidedly not samurai-like. It seems to us this will bear a few similarities to the Assassin's Creed series, which is no bad thing. Perhaps most excitingly, Goldfarb stated that this is the developer's biggest game by a wide margin. He says the new trailer provides a few hints at gameplay, but that it barely scratches the surface. We're definitely excited to see much more in the months leading up to its summer 2020 release. So yeah, I thought this was important to highlight because it kind of points out exactly what I just said, is that they're just essentially scratching the surface when it comes to the gameplay and the depth of it in terms of combat and what you're going to be doing in this game in these trailers we've seen so far. And that's exciting to me because I think that this game, I have a good feeling about the story. I think it's going to tell a good story. I think that in terms of environments and aesthetics, everything is there and it's very exciting. But I think the game is really going to be defined by two things essentially. The first, again, being that story, whether or not they're really going to be able to deliver something impactful and meaningful. We know that that is what a lot of Sony's first-party studios are trying to do these days with their games, and I think they can. Everything I'm seeing so far tells me this is going to be a more grounded, more serious type of character-driven story from Sucker Punch, which is exciting. But I definitely think the overall gameplay and the combat mechanics, I think that's going to be what really either elevates this game to that next level or, maybe doesn't jive as well with some people. But I am extremely confident in everything I've seen so far tells me that there's going to be a lot to like here with this, and it really makes me feel good that it's going to be their biggest game ever. We know that this is what Sony's first party is striving for: bigger games, more meaningful storytelling. Not every single first party, not every single exclusive, but their major first party studios here. And the last thing I want to say here, well, I do want to mention the summer 2020 launch window. I think it's really good for them to launch it at that time. My predicted date of September 18th, 2020 was not correct unless the game ends up getting delayed. I don't think that will happen. But summer, I'm expecting either July or August, and I think if it launches sometime around that time frame, it'll definitely give it enough breathing room. It'll be far enough away from The Last of Us Part 2, it won't have to worry about that, and it will be far enough away from the PlayStation 5 launch that it won't have to worry about that either. So I think that that is actually perfect timing. And the very last thing I want to say before moving on to talking about GodFall is that I firmly believe that Ghost of Tsushima is going to be the game that elevates Sucker Punch as a studio to that next level. I know there's a lot of people who already see Sucker Punch that way, but I think that there's a lot of people who just don't see Sucker Punch after Infamous Second Son, being on the same level as what Sony Santa Monica did with God of War. Sony Santa Monica really elevated themselves to another level with that game. The same goes for Naughty Dog with The Last of Us. I think a lot of people would argue that Naughty Dog was already there with the Uncharted series, but I don't think anybody can argue that The Last of Us just really pushed things to another level for them, especially when you see the expectation that has been set for The Last of Us Part 2, and even a studio like Guerrilla Games, what Horizon Zero Dawn has done for them just elevates them to a whole nother level. I firmly believe that Ghost of Tsushima is going to be that game that does that for Sucker Punch, and I'm extremely excited for that because I want to see. That's what's so exciting about Sony's first party studios, is it's like they're always trying to raise the bar and push each other, and that's just an amazing thing because you see the results. You see these studios just putting out these games that just bring them. Even Sony Bend, even though I don't think they've reached that status yet, they have come a long way with Days Gone, and they have proven that they have potential here to really do something crazy, and I think that that's what Sucker Punch is doing right now with Ghost of Tsushima. So very excited for it. Had to take some time here to talk about this. But moving on from that, I want to discuss GodFall. And this game is kind of a big deal because it was announced during the Game Awards. It's a new IP. It's not from a Sony first-party studio, but Sony struck a deal with, I believe, Gearbox, or I have to figure out who the publisher is exactly. But either way, I know it is an exclusive game to PlayStation 5. It will also be launching on PC, but there's not there is some information out on this game. I just haven't seen a lot of people talking about it, so I wanted to give it some time here and talk about some of the details. I came across this post on the PlayStation blog where it says GodFall announced for PlayStation 5, bringing looter slasher action to next gen. So let's do a little bit of reading here. It says, we founded Counterplay Games, and I think this is written by Keith Lee. He's the CEO of Counterplay Games. I think that is the studio behind this. It says, we founded Counterplay Games with the singular desire to create games focused on high levels of personal mastery, rewarding players for the time invested with our titles. We get to accomplish both with Godfall and the hugely exciting PlayStation 5 hardware. Our goal with Godfall is to reforge fantasy ARPG-style loot progression and third-person melee combat into a whole new genre, the looter slasher. Namely, our game is uniquely one part gear-driven and one part player skill-driven. Godfall retains the desire for offense-oriented, mastery-driven combat, rewarding you with head-turning, powerful loot that then inspires your next set of character builds. Godfall's third-person melee combat is fluid, dynamic, and interactive, embracing offense over defense. While many games these days create one-off cat-and-mouse challenges for players, we want to broaden combat encounters with enduring replayability. In Godfall, you can expect satisfying one-against-many enemy combat encounters, along with challenging head-to-head boss fights. Godfall's designed from the ground up with co-op in mind. You can play the entire game in solo, duo, or trio. Your enemies will respond dynamically, mutating their behavior and attack patterns based on your group size. Our goal for co-op is stronger together and fun for all. You can expect to hear more about Godfall next spring. We're honored to bring Godfall to you on PlayStation 5 in holiday 2020. So hopefully that gives you guys a really good description of what exactly this game is. And I'm not going to lie to you, after reading this, I became way more excited with this game because the trailer that you're going to be seeing, probably looped playing in the background, is really all we got. There was a little tiny teaser of gameplay that we got that I don't know if I'm going to be able to have that in the background, but it was literally I think less than 5 seconds. But it looks really good actually, and I've seen some people that were very impressed with what we saw graphically in this trailer. I think that some people were unimpressed because they were expecting something a little bit different considering it's the first PS5 game. But if you actually look closely, you can tell that this is definitely a next-gen title we're looking at, because what they did also confirms that what you're seeing in the trailer is actually in real time in-engine. This is not a pre-rendered, CGI cutscene we're seeing here. This is actually real-time in-engine. And this sounds like it's going to be an interesting game. I have a feeling it's going to be a launch title for the PlayStation 5, where it's going to launch within the first month or two of the PS5 being out. And a looter slasher, it sounds like they're going for something a little bit different here. Maybe it does sound a little bit gimmicky, but I I like this. Like, I love games that are really melee focused, and I've enjoyed my fair share of looter based games. And so the idea that this is going to be a co-op game where you go out there and it's gear / combat driven. The gear part I'm not too worried about. I think that that's just going to really be that incentive to keep playing the game, obviously, and keep leveling up and finding new gear and wanting to just create, as they talk about here, just better character builds. But I'm really going to be interested to see how the game plays, because it talks about offensive skill-based combat, and it reminds me, and I know some people are not going to want to hear this, but it reminds me of Bloodborne, right? Because that's what Bloodborne was. I was actually very surprised when playing Bloodborne just how aggressive and offensive you had to play the game, and it's like, a melee-based game as well. I mean, you can have some ranged combat as well, but that's kind of what it is reminding me of a little bit here, especially when they talk about the boss battles and it being co-op. I could see this being a really, really great game, and that trailer, I think it was a pretty good trailer, but I'm not going to lie, reading what Keith Lee, the CEO of Counterplay Games here, what they had to say, has me way more excited for it now, and I'm actually going to be paying very close attention to this game, and I'm probably going to be talking about this game throughout 2020 since it will be a PlayStation 5 launch title. Very important about this game, I can't believe I haven't mentioned it up until this point. It has been confirmed, at least based off of what I've read. They don't confirm it in this blog post, but I remember reading it. I think it was in a separate article that I don't have up currently, that this game, GodFall, is not going to be cross-gen. At least that's what I've read. That's what I've been hearing. So it sounds like this is just going to be a PlayStation 5 only console game. Again, it is releasing on PC, but it's not going to be cross-gen, so it's going to be heavily optimized for the PlayStation 5. And I think that, I don't know who is in charge of making this decision. I have to assume that maybe this was a request that Sony made, considering they're looking to sell PlayStation 5s, and by them making it exclusive to just the PlayStation 5, anybody who doesn't want to play it on PC will go out there and purchase a PS5. But yeah, a looter slasher action game, melee combat, first PS5 game announced. It sounds really cool, and I know that some people are sitting here saying, I was expecting something different, something bigger for the first PS5 game announced. You have to understand, that stuff is coming. Sony is saving those announcements for when they actually reveal the PlayStation 5. They're not having any major first-party announcements right now for the PS5. They're just kind of showing these third-party deals that they're doing, or maybe even second-party deals that they have in place with some of these games that we're going to get with the PS5. So for anybody worried about that, don't worry. Those announcements are coming. But for now, this is what we're getting, and I actually think it looks really good, and I am tremendously excited. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I tried to make it kind of like a double feature here, talking about Ghost of Tsushima as well as GodFall, and I'm going to be very interested to hear what you guys have to say. What did you think about the Ghost of Tsushima trailer? What do you think about that release window we got for summer 2020? And be sure to let me know what you think about the first PS5 console exclusive game, GodFall, being a looter slasher melee based game. Going to be very interested to see what you guys have to say about this. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it, or if you found it informative. Really helps it out, lets me know you guys enjoy the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.